Hey everyone, this is Bob Kovacs here at Wirefly, and today we want to do a Schmackdown with two of the powerhouse phones in the cellular industry. On the left is the brand new Verizon iPhone 4. Of course, the iPhone 4 is not that new. It's been around since the summer of 2010. But this is the Verizon version, which just came onto the market just 3 or 4 days ago. It's a very new phone as we speak. And on the right is the HTC ThunderBolt, which runs on the Verizon network. So these are both Verizon phones. The HTC ThunderBolt, as you see, has a very large display. It's got a 4.3-inch display compared to the 3.5-inch display that's on the iPhone 4. So let's get started with the Wirefly cell phone Schmackdown. Let me start by saying these are two really good phones, really good phones. They're different in many ways. There's many points of differentiation. Of course, the Apple iPhone runs Apple's iPhone operating system. It's currently running on the iOS 4.2.6. I checked, and this version has 4.2.6. The HTC ThunderBolt is running on Android 2.2. It's running on the latest version of Android 2.2, which is 2.2.1. There's newer versions of Android. Android 2.3 is available on other phones as we speak, and HTC has said that there will be an upgrade to Android 2.3 on the Thunderbolt at some point, but that's off in the hazy future somewhere. So we've got the Apple operating system, iPhone operating system on the iPhone 4, and the Android operating system on the Thunderbolt. These are very different, and we will get into some of those differences. But let's start with the Apple iPhone. The iPhone has got a touch that is absolutely as smooth as silk. I mean, it is really beautiful. There's lots of little animations when you do things on the screen, and the animations are smooth and elegant. For instance, when I touch the utilities icon, it drops down a little drawer, let's call it, that shows some additional options within the utilities cabinet there. So you touch the utilities file and there's sub-files underneath it. Very smooth animations that you get on the cell phone. With the HTC ThunderBolt and other Android phones, you have screens to the left and right of the main screen. And you have these large widgets. For instance, this is HTC's Sense widget. It's called a flip clock, and it shows obviously the time, and it shows the weather a little bit. We're in Reston, Virginia, so it shows what the weather's like in Reston, Virginia. If I touch the sun, it calls up today's weather report. If I go back, and if I touch the clock, it brings up the more information about the clock, as well as some cute little clock applications down here. For instance, there's a stopwatch timer if you want to do time somebody in a race. So some very neat stuff here with the Android operating system and HTC's Sense user interface. Now there are similar functions over here on the Apple iPhone, so if you want a stopwatch timer and so forth, you've got those sort of things over on the iPhone. They're certainly available, but I kind of like the large clock that the HTC Sense user interface has on this phone. You can see the time on the iPhone. Yeah, sure. I kind of like this. It's kind of neat. And I like having the other widgets as well that you get here with Sense and with Android. There's lots of other things. You can have a Facebook widget. Here I've got a Google widget. Now if I wanted to search on the iPhone, to access the search, you just drag the screen to the right, and now you can search. And brings up the keyboard. If you want to go back to your main screen, just drag the other way. Now if you want to search on the Thunderbolt or on any Android phone, just touch the little search icon at the bottom right here, and it'll give you search. So here's something I want to point out as a differentiation between these two phones. If you want to do a search on the iPhone, you have got this keyboard, and it's in this portrait orientation, this vertical orientation. If you turn it horizontally, I can't get it to turn. So I would have to use the phone this way, which I personally don't really like using the phone vertically. It's my thumbs are kind of big. Now, maybe some Apple iPhone insiders know how to rotate that around. but I don't see it immediately how to do it. Whereas if I do it on the HTC Thunderbolt, it automatically rotates the keyboard around. It makes the keys larger, and now they work better with my fat fingers. I make fewer mistakes. So I really like that here on the Thunderbolt as opposed to the iPhone. Of course, it doesn't quite have the slick animations that the iPhone has, but it does well enough. So, both of these phones have 1 gigahertz processors. The Apple iPhone has 512 megabytes of processor RAM. That's RAM available to the processor. The HTC Thunderbolt has 768 megabytes of processor RAM. It also has a second generation processor, 1 gigahertz processor, that is going to be several months newer than the processor that is in the Apple iPhone. Remember, the iPhone came out in June of 2010. This phone, the Thunderbolt, came out in February of 2011. So it has technology that is more current, and it would be wonderful if we could demonstrate that. Unfortunately, we don't have a single benchmark that runs both on the Thunderbolt and the iPhone. There's ways to test the iPhone and there's ways to test the Thunderbolt, but we can't test them using the same thing, so any test that we run won't be really relevant against each other. Thunderbolt, it has Android 2.2, so it can show any Adobe Flash content. It has no problems playing Adobe Flash content. However, the iPhone doesn't play Adobe Flash content. So if you have an animation on a website, if you go to a site where there's an embedded video window, those can't generally be played on the iPhone, and they play just fine on the Thunderbolt. Another big difference between both the Thunderbolt and the iPhone has got 16 gigs. It comes with two versions. There's a 16 gig and 32 gig version of the iPhone. In other words, it has 16 gig of memory for your files, or 32 gig of memory. This is a 16 gig iPhone. So that's a very nice complement of memory, a nice large amount of memory for your music and video files that you can put on your iPhone. The HTC Thunderbolt comes with 8 gig of onboard storage, but it also comes with a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. There's an expansion memory slot, a micro SD memory slot, and you can put memory cards in the HTC Thunderbolt and most other Android phones. And again, the Thunderbolt comes with 8 gig of onboard memory. That's less than the 16 gig in the iPhone, but it also comes with, out of the box, a 32 gigabyte micro SD card to give this 40 gig of storage for your files, your music, your video, your documents, versus the 16 gig here in the iPhone. So the Thunderbolt wipes the floor with the iPhone when it comes to the actual memory for your files, your music, your videos, your other types of things you want to carry around on your cell phone. Let's talk a little bit now about the displays. I mentioned them very briefly. This is a 4.3-inch display. This is a 3.5-inch display. This has the resolution of 480 by 800 pixels. This has the resolution of 640 by 960 pixels. The resolution of the iPhone display, which Apple refers to as a Retina display, the resolution of this display is really wonderful. It is small. Everything on it is small because it's a smaller screen, but it is crystal clear. I did notice that it tends to drop off quickly as you rotate the phone off axis. So if you're trying to show a couple of people something on the phone, somebody who's off axis trying to watch it will have a dimmer, harder to see display. Typically with the LCD display on a phone like the Thunderbolt, you have a bit better off-axis viewing, I've found. So in other words, I found that the off-axis viewing on the Thunderbolt is a little better than the off-axis viewing on the Apple iPhone 4. But there's no doubt about it that the Retina display on the Apple iPhone is absolutely crystal clear. The display on the Thunderbolt is a very nice display. It certainly is very easy to see, and you can show it to a couple of people on either side of you, and everybody can get a really good view. Now, if you're looking at these two, you'll say, well, gosh, look at the sizes. Let's compare the sizes. The iPhone is very sleek and compact, and it feels great in the hand. I mean, it just fits in the hand like it's carved from a piece of high quality aluminum. It really has a wonderful feel, slim, and just the right sort of sensation that make you give you the impression that it's a high quality product. Apple does a beautiful job with that. The HTC ThunderBolt is bigger, bulkier. If you have no problem with that, it fits in a shirt pocket, it fits in a pants pocket. It is well made, it looks good. So there's nothing wrong with the construction of the HTC ThunderBolt, but is definitely bulkier than the iPhone. And take a look at the thickness of the two phones as well. So the Apple iPhone is much slimmer, thinner than the Thunderbolt as well. Let's talk about some other things. The Thunderbolt has got a kickstand. The kickstand allows you to stand the phone up like that on a tabletop, and it's now facing my face, so it's directly looking at my face. If I want to play back a video or play back a presentation of some sort, I can do it on the phone very comfortably. I don't have to hold it in my hand. I don't have to try to prop it up on a book or something like that. Perfectly, it will display just like that. And not only that, but the Thunderbolt will also stand up using the kickstand straight up, vertically like that, and it's stable when you do it like that as well. So the kickstand gives the Thunderbolt some options that the iPhone does not have. If you look at the face of both of these devices, they both have front-facing cameras. We have a 1.3 megapixel camera on the front of the Thunderbolt. We have what's called a VGA quality camera. It's a little hard to see in this light on the iPhone 4. That's 640 by 480 pixels. It's perfectly good for doing video chat, and you can do video chat with both of these phones. There is a higher resolution. A 1.3 megapixel phone is substantially higher resolution. 1.3 megapixel camera is substantially higher resolution than the 640 by 480 camera that comes with the Apple iPhone. Let's flip this phone over and talk about some of the features on the back. The Apple iPhone has a 5 megapixel still image camera with a single LED flash. It can record 720p HD video. The HTC ThunderBolt has got an 8 megapixel still image camera with a dual LED flash, and like the iPhone, it can record a 720p HD signal, video signal. Now, something else here on the back of the Thunderbolt, the back cover comes off, and underneath, the battery is replaceable. You can pop the battery out. The Apple iPhone, you cannot take the back cover off. It's sealed. The battery is not replaceable. If for some reason you get a marginal battery, you have to take the phone back to Apple and either swap it for a new phone, or you have to have Apple replace the battery for you. On the Thunderbolt, you can just stick a fingernail in here and lift the battery out. I previously mentioned underneath the battery is a micro SD card, the 32 gigabyte micro SD card. So if for some reason you want to swap the memory, the micro SD memory in this phone, you need to take out the battery. You can take the card out and put a new battery in. Also, the Thunderbolt is an LTE 4G phone, and we'll talk about that more in a moment, but there is a SIM card required for the LTE 4G service that is also under the battery. Okay, now that I've brought up LTE and 4G, let's talk about that for just a moment. The Thunderbolt is a 4G phone. That means it works on Verizon's high-speed LTE, that stands for long-term evolution network. You can expect download speeds, if you are within range of an LTE tower, that are going to be in the 4 megabits per second to 12 megabits per second. I've personally tested LTE devices and gotten speeds as high as 19 megabits per second. Now, that was an air card, not a phone, but that is an astonishing data rate for a wireless device. I was like, whoa. Now the Apple iPhone 4 is also, these are both on the Verizon network, but this is a 3G. This uses Verizon's CDMA technology. With CDMA, you can routinely get speeds from 1 to 3 megabits. I've personally done a lot of testing with CDMA devices and gotten speeds 2.2 megabits, 2.4 megabits. Generally not seen speeds above that. Speeds are often in the high kilobit range, like 750 kilobits per second. That is perfectly good speed for surfing the internet. However, if you want to download, if you want to watch a YouTube video, it is much slower to download it at 3G speeds and watch it than it is at the 4G speeds that you get here on the Thunderbolt. So that wraps up the Wirefly cell phone Schmackdown between the iPhone 4 on Verizon on the left and the HTC ThunderBolt and LTE 4G phone also on Verizon. Which phone is the winner? Well, to a large extent, it has to do with which concept of phones do you like. Do you like the Apple iPhone concept? It is a very good concept, and there are millions of people out there who say that this is the way to go. Do you like the Android open software and interchangeable hardware concept that you get over here with the HTC ThunderBolt? Do you like the big screen versus the smaller screen with higher resolution? There's so many different ways you can go on these. Personally, if I had to carry one of these around, I would personally go with the HTC ThunderBolt. I know that some of you are saying that, hey, you could have figured that out from the start, but I like the ease of use that I get here with the Android operating system. This is also very easy to use, of course, but I like the fact that there are applications. Many applications are free for the HTC ThunderBolt for Android, whereas you almost always have to pay for applications from the Apple App Store with the iPhone. So in other words, there's much more content that's free and low cost on Android than there is on the Apple iPhone. And at the rate apps are growing for Android phones, there are soon, I would say in the next couple of months, there's going to be more apps available for Android than there will be for the iPhone. But, you know, don't let that sway your decision. Both of these have plenty of apps, and in many cases there are apps available on the iPhone that there's nothing equivalent on Android, and vice versa. So it's awfully hard to compare phones by, you know, the quantity of apps. Keep in mind that with the iPhone, apps are generally going to cost you more than they're going to cost you on the HTC ThunderBolt. So, bigger screen, kickstand, removable memory, more memory out of the box, you know, a growing app base. Well, they're both growing, but this is going to surpass the iPhone, I think, in a couple of months. That ends up with a Wirefly cell phone Schmackdown in favor of the HTC ThunderBolt on Verizon, an LTE 4G phone. The iPhone 4 on Verizon, a terrific phone. Nobody can fault you if you want to get one. But hey, this is Bob Kovacs here at Wirefly. Thanks for watching.